the delay. We'll discuss what I mentioned last week. I'm going to speak about. I'm going to print the papers. I'll bring them for you tomorrow. I didn't have a chance to print for everyone the papers and shit. We went through Rosh Gimel. Some of you went through Rosh Gimel. All of it, part of it. I'm going to discuss the beginning of Rosh Gimel, first Kuntasachran, and the parts of the Madura Basra and Rosh Gimel. I'm not going to focus too much on Madura Basra, but the points that are relevant. A lot of it is not relevant to this specifically Siman. The Alter Rebbe opens Siman Rosh Gimel by saying a general rule. Chachamim prohibited for a Jew to tell a goy to do a melacha for a Jew on Shabbos. Whether he's getting paid for it, whether he's not getting paid for it, whether the Jew needs the melacha on Shabbos, does not need the melacha on Shabbos. And the reason is, we also saw this in the other Kuntasachim that I spoke about last time, that being that the guy is doing a melacha as a shliach of the Yid, it becomes asur. Even though we don't see shluch hashalom k'moisa when it comes to a guy, lahachmir we do, as we see it in other places also. And even though he's not mamash a shliach, ultimately we're machmir, it looks like a shliach. Alter Rebbe continues then, if you want to hire a guy for a full year, that he should do everything on Shabbos, also on Shabbos, and he will receive money, and he will bring that money that he makes on Shabbos to the Yid. You have to be moicher. You have a chiyuv mechoya for a guy that does a melacha for you on Shabbos. Even if the guy is doing it for other goyim, he's using your business to make money for you on Shabbos by providing services to a goy, it's still us. Because ultimately the Yid is profiting from the work of the goy on Shabbos. Not only that, Alter Rebbe adds in parentheses, even if the goy prepared everything before Shabbos, and then he works on Shabbos, just collects the payments on Shabbos from the goyim, ultimately, he is working for the Jew. We have three concepts to remember. Working for the Jew, being a shliach of the Jew, making money on Shabbos. The Jew is making money on Shabbos. Doesn't make a difference that the guy is ultimately working for himself because he's an employee and he wants to be on good terms with his employer. Why? Because even if the Yid is, if the guy knows, and it means even if the Yid would tell the guy, don't work on Shabbos, he's not going to take off salary from him. And the guy doesn't know that. He thinks that the Jew is going to take salary off from him on Shabbos. Therefore, he's working on Shabbos. And the guy is ultimately have in mind his own salary because he wants to make money on Shabbos. He wants to make money. But still, it's asur. Why? Because ultimately, the Yid is not going to take off any money from him. All the money is going to go to the Yid. The guy is not going to lose any money for not working on Shabbos. Therefore, the guy is not profiting anything from working on Shabbos, and the Jew is profiting. Therefore, since the Jew is getting profits from working on Shabbos, it is still asur.
Why don't we say that the Yid can't take off for the salary? Why don't we say that the Yid can take off for the salary? Well, no, if he didn't work on Shabbos.
He's not going to.
No, it's a reason not to say that he will come.
If he's not working on Shabbos?
If the guy is saying the guy is working on Shabbos, it doesn't help. If he's working on Shabbos to get a salary, it doesn't help that he doesn't know that's not going to be.
He's going to take off on the guy for working on Shabbos, for not working on Shabbos, and the guy is going to go and actually work on Shabbos and get paid salary on Shabbos, and he's for sure working on Shabbos for the Yid, specifically specified to be working on.
For himself, get a salary, because if he didn't work, he wouldn't get it.
He's not working for himself because the Yid is making the money on Shabbos anyways. He's working, he's getting a salary for his work.
Ultimately, the Yid is going to have to pay him the same. He's going to pay him the same amount. He's going to take off.
If he's going to pay him the same amount, he's going to take off the salary. Then he's going to, if he's going to pay him the same amount, still keep the same salary going. Then he's going to have if the guy is going to not work on Shabbos, he's going to get paid the same amount of money. The Yid is not losing, he's not losing anything on Shabbos. The guy,
The Alter is saying that the Yid is going to pay him the same amount because there's a reason that the Yid can't pay him less, or the Alter is saying that.
He's stating, he says you hired him for a year.
And if he was going to pay him less, then we could fine.
If he was going to pay him less, and then he wouldn't pay him for Shabbos.
He would pay him less if he didn't work on Shabbos.
And then the Shabbos the guy is not working.
And he's working for himself because if he would work, he would.
If he's working for himself, means he's not bechal nothing to do. He's not paying him a salary, and he's profiting everything. It's not a problem.
The Yid is going to pay him the same amount if he doesn't work on Shabbos.
No, because if he's working for himself on Shabbos completely, he doesn't get paid a salary for Shabbos. He's just profiting from what he's selling. Then it's for sure that's not a problem.
We're discussing whether the fact that he's working to get a salary is considered to be working for himself, right?
So we say that when he's working to get his salary, being that he does not know that he was hired for the year and he's working on Shabbos, in his mind, his work on Shabbos is part of his responsibilities towards the Jew. So he's working for the Jew. The guy is not profiting anything specifically for Shabbos. He's working for the Jew on Shabbos, and the Jew is making all the profits. He's getting the same salaries if he would have worked on Tuesday. So on Tuesday he works and he gets a salary and gives the profits to the Jew. On Shabbos he works, gets a salary and gives the profit to the Jew. So it's also. If he's not going to get paid on Shabbos, he's going to make the money he's not going to get a salary on Shabbos. Rather, he's going to get a percentage of what he sells, whichever way it is. He's going to buy it from the guy, buy it from the Yid, and then sell it, and then give the Jew part of the money. Then it's not the same issue. It's not also a separate issue. It's in the place of a Jew, Madasayim, but it's not the same as getting a salary. Getting a salary is a problem. So that's talking about a year. יש גם שליחות, יש גם מראיתיים, תלוי באיזה כלל. פה זה מצם שליחות, בשנה זה משך שליחות. Not only for years it's like package. Even much more so when he pays him by the day, pays him by every day. If he pays him by every day, then for sure it's usher. Even though the guy is going to get a salary specifically, he's working on Shabbos and he's getting a salary because he wants to get paid on Shabbos, you still have to be moicha. Why? Because even though the guy has in mind that he's going to work on Shabbos to get his salary, the only reason he's doing it is because the Yid hired him to work on Shabbos. Therefore, he's a shliach of the Yid. And the guy has in mind to do it for the Yid. And therefore, even though he's doing it for his own salary, but in his mind he's doing it because the Yid hired him, the rule is that a shliach, when he does something for his meshalech, it makes no difference whether he's doing it for himself or he's doing it l'tevas ha-meshalech or l'tevas atzmai, ben kach u ben kach shluchihu. He's considered a shliach regardless. Schar Shabbos is a separate parsha. Comes Alter Rebbe in Kunter Sachran and explains to you a few crucial points. Alter Rebbe Kunter Sachran goes into defining what the issue of a Schir Yoim is, a Schir Shana, a Schir Yoim. What is the issue in a Schir Yoim? He opens by saying, even though the Shulchan Aruch, the Mashmos, the Mechaber is, that the Isser is because he asked him to work specifically on Shabbos. That's also mashma from the words of the Rambam that says Sochar hagoy lasis lemilocha b'Shabbos, right? And from that seems like if he did not ask him to work, he did not tell him to work on Shabbos, he does not look like a shliach, even if he does work on Shabbos. But the Alter Rebbe, anyways, is machmer and says Afa pi shelo yomar lo yisasek b'Shabbos is still also. Even if he didn't tell him they should work on Shabbos, it's still also. Over there, the Magen Avraham explains that the Kavanah, when the Shulchan Aruch says that, it's Schare Liyamim. He hired him for days. He didn't specify he's hiring him also for Shabbos. And that's how Alter Rebbe understands it. That's clearly in the Riyaz that he hired him for specific days, and he gives him a specific specific salary per day. And the reason that it's usher, even if you don't tell him specifically to work on Shabbos, he says all the poskim that make a differentiation between a Schir Yoim and a Kablan. Schir Yoim is somebody who gets paid a salary per day, which is usher. and a Koblen, who we're going to discuss soon what the definition of a Koblen is, please touch upon the definition of a Koblen, that he receives a payment for a specific job, and that's mutter in specific situations. Yet, all these people says, if the difference would be whether you're allowed to tell him to do on Shabbos, to work for you on Shabbos, or you're not allowed to tell him to work for you on Shabbos, telling a guy to work for you on Shabbos is also even by a Koblen. When you hire a Koblen, you tell him, you give him a specific job to do, and he gets paid by the job, and he's getting to be hired on Shabbos, and you tell him, do the work for me on Shabbos, it's still usher. So what's the difference between Schirim and a Koblen? If the only difference is whether you tell him to do it on Shabbos or not, there's no difference between Schirim and a Koblen. So obviously the reason why Schirim is more strict is not because you told him to work on Shabbos, and it's usher even if you don't tell him to work on Shabbos. And that's clearly written also in the Beis Yosef regarding a Schirim, that even though you don't tell him to work on Shabbos, still a no, being that you pay him per day a salary, it seems as if the Jew is telling him to work on Shabbos. The Mordechai has the same differentiation, that in the Schirim he says it's usher in any form, and the Koblen, he tells him you're not allowed to tell him on Erev Shabbos to work for you on Shabbos. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says it's clear, we have to say that it's usher to hire a guy for specific days, even if you don't tell him to work on Shabbos. For the reason that the Alter Rebbe says, like he wrote inside in the Shulchan Aruch, that being that the guy is working on Shabbos because the Yid hired him to do work for him per day, and in his mind, his kavanah is that he is the sachir of the Jew, that he's the guy who's being rented by the Jews, he becomes the shliach of the Jew, and it's usher. And there's no difference whether he hires him for a day, whether he hires him per day salary, per week, per month, per year. When he's hired and he gets paid for a specific amount of time to do work, and not by the job, then when he works, he has in mind that he's working because of the job that he was hired. Masha'enkin by a Koblen, he takes upon himself the responsibility to finish this job. He's hired to build a house. He's hired to fix a pipe. Whatever he's hired to do, specifically for a specific job. And then he's receiving his work. He's receiving his payment for the specific job. The Jew is paying him for his job, not per day. The guy is not having in mind that he's working for the Jew, because the Jew didn't tell him to work this day or that day. The Jew tells him, do this job, finish this job. So when he finishes this job, he's working for the malach. He's a Koblen. The definition of a Koblen is working for a specific job. And therefore, by a Koblen, who is not considered like a shliach of the Yid, being that he accepts upon himself to complete the whole melacha, and he was not hired salary per day, and a very important point, he's not going, being that he was hired for the job, he's not going to change his mind in the middle of the job and quit. It means he has a commitment, he has a contract for a specific job. A salaried employee, whatever he finishes working in the day, he's done. He goes home. He doesn't have any limitation, he doesn't have any responsibilities other than clocking at 9 o'clock and clocking out at 5 o'clock, 9 to 5. That's it. It's not that at the end of the day he has to finish a specific job, and he's not going to get fired if he doesn't finish the specific job. He's getting paid for the hours that he's working, for the time that he's working. And when he's in the middle of his work, the Koblen is continuing to work until he finishes his job. The worker is working for the amount, for whatever time he's getting paid for that day. That's why also, when it comes to a Yid who has a merchotz, we're not going into Marasayin now yet. Yid who has a merchotz, if he's paying the guy for every warming up, every time he turns on the fire to warm up the bath, then he's a Koblen for that job. He gets paid $100 per warm bath that he puts up. So he warms up the bath in the morning. Sometimes he could do 2 in one day. Sometimes he could do 1 in 2 days, whatever is needed. So he gets paid per job. He does not get paid for the days that he's working. So it could be on a Friday he'll have 3 times because all the Yidden are coming to take out of Shabbos. On Shabbos he'll have 1. On Sunday he'll have 2. And on Tuesday he'll have 1. Whatever it is, he's getting paid for each time he's warming up the bath. Yeah.
Did you set up a contract with an employer like that? That for 6 days an employee, for the Shabbos day he's a contractor. Carbon is basically a contractor versus employee, right?
Yeah, but he's not getting paid a salary on Shabbos.
So you tell him that, so for 6 days a week he gets paid a salary.
For doing what?
For cleaning, whatever he's doing.
Yeah, but issue of might assign regardless.
And on the 7th day, he's a contractor. His job is to mop the floors. And his job, and you lay it out differently.
And he gets paid by the mopping.
Yeah, and it happens to be that the mopping looks like it's the same as the rest of the thing.
What does it mean? He gets paid, so on Shabbos, if he mops 3 times, he'll get paid triple what he gets paid on Friday.
You're saying, we need triple.
It's the regular day. No, you have to
day.
pay him per job. Not once a day, because then he's working for you for the day. Unless you tell me, I have no problem. Come mop at 6:45 and leave at 7. You're done mopping, you go home.
Or like that. Meaning, it feels like there's a way to set up a contract like this. You can just
Technically, there is. If it's a Jewish-owned company, you have a different problem. Not a sign issue. Mitzad kablanus and schiryim, you solve the problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
the
not-
only day that you're doing.
You're telling him it's if.
No, the Kabbalah from Merchat, if he doesn't do on Shabbos, he has a hefsed. Anything Kabbalah for Sunday, if he doesn't do on Shabbos, he has
Said Merchat is stricter for other reasons. Turning on the fire. Rather, you pay him per day. Do a specific set of work to work from 9 to 5. He has a list of jobs to do every day, not specifically Shabbos. He's not considered a Schiryim. Rather, he's considered a Koblen. He's a Koblen for these. Masha'enkin is Schiryim, when he doesn't accept upon himself all the jobs, he has to show up from 9 to 5 and do whatever he could do during those hours. And he gets paid for the salary of the day, regardless of whether he finishes the job or not. Why? Because the definition of a Koblen, the way Al Tareb explains this, Koblen is somebody who mekabel, kiboilus, accepts upon himself, he commits himself to finish a specific job. And therefore it's mutter. Now, even if he receives a daily payment, he doesn't become ois Koblen because his commitment is to do a specific set of jobs. So he's a Koblen for these work. He's getting paid per day. He's hired for the week or for the month or for the year. But his hiring is not to work this day. It's to do these jobs. So he's a Koblen for these jobs. So therefore, when the Rosh says that it's Aser, the Rosh is Aser over here. He's not Oyser because it's a Schiryim. He's Oyser for the totally different reason. He's Oyser because Schar Shabbos. Because Mitzat Schiryim is Oyser Schiryim already. He became a Koblen. So the only issue you could have here is Schar Shabbos. Yeah, that's how the Alter Rebbe explains the Rosh. Interestingly, on the bottom, there's on this Kuntra Sachrin, on this Siman, they found later the Ksav Yad of the Maharil that has a few differences from the printed Alter Rebbe, and the Kuntra Sachrin, a few different, certain places it was different. It was printed in the bottom of the Alter Rebbe. So here the Maharil explains that when it comes to a merchetz, Apid din, it's Aser, even if he accepts upon himself all the work. Why? Because it's issue of Schar Shabbos. The only way it's going to work is if you pay him per turning on the flames. Not that you hire him to do all the work on Shabbos, specific set of work. Because then he becomes a Koblen for each Hesek, for each turning on the flame. And the Jew doesn't care if he turns it on at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock or whenever the people come. Right? And regardless, he concludes still it's also mitzad manasai. So you solve the problem of Schiur Yom, he becomes a Kabbalan, and he gets paid per turning on the flames. The issue of Schar Shabbos is a different issue, but Mitzat Marasayin, you still did not solve the problem to rent a merchitz to a goy for Shabbos. Means you still didn't solve the concept of merchitz, you have a much bigger problem. Let's go back to Alter Rebbe. Now, the Sefer HaTruma, this is the crucial point, because the Sefer HaTruma is what Alter Rebbe explains differently in Madhu Rabasa. Over here explains it one way, Madhu Rabasa explains it totally different. The Sefer HaTruma and the Goyes Mordechai are matir when you have a Schir Shana, a yearly employee. If he will work, he's mekabel upon himself a specific set of work that he has to do throughout the year, then his definition is a kablan of a melacha and not a kablan and not a schir shana. However, if he would get paid for the year, for each day of the year, it would be aser. So he says that's when they're matir. The Alter Rebbe says we came along that's aser for a different reason. But the svara of the Sefer HaTruma is that if he accepts upon himself, if he gets paid a yearly salary and accepts upon himself to do all the malachas, then accepts upon himself a specific set of malacha of work to do, then it's mutter. Why are we Iser? Kaimalon Faket? Because ultimately the Jew is getting hanoeh from the work, is profit, is getting benefit from the work of the guy. What's his profit? If the guy wouldn't do it for him on Shabbos, he would have to work on Mitzvah Shabbos to do all that work. So now the guy did this work for him on Shabbos. He became free to do the work on other work that he has to do on Mitzvah Shabbos. His workload got smaller. That's first reason. Second reason, he's not taking off anything from his salary even if it doesn't work, like we explained before. But the Isur is not because of Schir Shana. The issue of the Isur of Schir Shana is moved aside, because right now he's already a Kabbalah. The only reason it's Asur
Is there Schir Shana or Schir Shana?
Schir Yom. Schir, not Schar. The issue of Schir doesn't apply anymore. However, there's still Asur because he's getting profit from it. The Yid is benefiting from the guy's work on Shabbos. That's why, even though Sefer HaTruma says it's mutter to take a Schir Shana, when he takes upon himself to do all the melachas, specifically becomes a common for melacha, it's also for different reasons, because of hanoah that the Jew has from it, but not mitzad having a goy work for you on Shabbos.
So this is all in the case where the guy is working to do your work for you.
Yeah.
But if it's work for you, and wouldn't be doing it yourself, does that make a difference?
You would have to get busy with it after Shabbos. Find somebody to do it for you then, Sunday.
You hire somebody next day.
Okay, so everything gets pushed off a day.
So my question is whether you did it today or tomorrow. It doesn't matter when you hire the guy to do this job.
You hired a guy to plow your field. Yeah?
It doesn't matter if it's plowed on Shabbos.
Oh, sure it is, because if it's plowed on Sunday, I can only plant on Monday. If it's plowed on Shabbos, I could plant on Sunday.
It's not that kind of.
Any work that the guy does for me, he's relieving for me a specific set. Whatever the guy does, if he's doing it for me, unless he's doing something which I'm not asking him to do, and just like he painted my house and I don't need it to be painted, then something else.
If something needs to be cleaned once a week, it doesn't matter which day of the week you clean it.
Good. So then,
Cleaned it on Shabbos.
so you hired him.
To clean this thing.
You tell him that this car has to be washed once a week, right? Okay, this car has to be washed once a week. I don't care which day of the week you come to wash the car. You're getting paid $20 to hose the car down, or $50 to hose the car down. So you have an issue if he's doing it in the property of the Jew, Marasayan, these things. But mitzad kablonis, you don't have a problem.
And it's at the
But if you hire him for a full year and you tell him your responsibility is every day you have to wash my car. You have to vacuum my car every day. And you're getting paid $20 for vacuuming my car every single day. he's getting paid $20 a day. Then he's getting paid for the whole year. And if he doesn't come on Shabbos, what are you going to do? If he's a real Kabbalah, he's not going to get paid for Shabbos. If he's not a real Kabbalah, if he's a Sechir Shana, he gets a yearly membership, he's going to get paid anyways. You'll fight with him afterwards, but maybe.
Okay, if you get paid, why does that make it a way that you now need to do? What's the schar that you're getting? The hana that you're getting?
Clean car. It's a Shabbos. You're driving to pizza. His car doesn't not full of crumbs. But really, it's talking about work that you profit from. Plowing the field makes more sense.
Well, most of the time, besides for business, I'm talking about hiring someone to clean a house, whatever. You're not.
That's something else. That's something else. Because those things that you're allowed to do yourself. You can sweep. That's a separate question. But you could definitely sweep your Chabad house. If it's if you don't have a problem of straightening the earth. If it's vacuum is making noise. If a guy's doing it for himself, you give him a broom and he brings his own vacuum. You give him a broom to clean a carpet. Okay. Listen, he knows that's not what he wanted to do. It's haroma. Yeah, a broom to sweep the floor is different. Now, if this guy who is getting paid a Shkir, if this Shkir Shana for specific work would not be considered a Kablan, all the Heterim would not work because he becomes a Shkir Shabbos Behavlo. Not Schar Shabbos, Shkir Shabbos Behavlo. And for a Shkir Shabbos Havlo doesn't help. It means you can't hire a guy to work for you and have his Shabbos day work together with the rest of them. So I'll tell you, it says, Schir Shabbos, you can't have Avlo. Schir Shabbos, you can have Avlo. Schir Shabbos. Huh? Seems so. So it looks not time. It's towards the end of the second paragraph of the Kuntasachra. Based on that, the Alter Rebbe explains what the Beis Yosef brings. The Beis Yosef brings us a scenario where somebody who rented from the king the mint, where you make the coins. He can't hire a guy to come work for him on Shabbos and mint the coins for him. Why? Basically it says because he's telling the guy to work for him on Shabbos. But if we would have hired him for a week, a month, or a year, and he's hiring him for a specific job, he's not hiring him to come work for him on Shabbos. He's telling him, I'm hiring you for the whole year, and your job is to mint 100 coins a day. Mint whatever it is, a certain amount of coins. And he's a schir for the melacha, not for the yom. So he becomes a kabbalah. And then the Alter Rebbe says, it seems like he would fit with the Sefer HaTrumas. The Sefer HaTruma, his opinion, what Alter Rebbe explains over here is, in Kudasachen, is that the Yesod of Sefer HaTruma, to be matter, is if you're a Kabbalah, that you're mekabel upon yourself the jobs, or you're getting paid per day regardless of whether you complete your job or not. That's the difference between a Kabbalah and a Schurim. So you could have a yearly salary, but if your job is by certain chores that have to be done every day, then you're getting paid for the melachas. Even though you're getting paid a salary, you're getting paid for the melachas. If your job is to show up at 9 and end at 5, then it doesn't work again. So now the Alter Rebbe concludes and asks a question. You have a Maharam that's talking about somebody who got from the king the license to collect all the taxes, the import taxes, tariffs. Then over there, when you hire a guy to do the work for you, you can't tell him. You have to make with him a deal that for every $100 that he collects in taxes, you get a certain amount of money. Why isn't it enough that you just hire him for the jobs? You tell him your job is to process all the containers that come, all the trucks that come through this checkpoint on today. The Maram says, it doesn't say that. The Maram says he has to get a certain payment per 100. For every 100 dinners that he makes, he has to give a certain amount to the Yid. So he says, because over here, this melacha doesn't have an end. How does it work over there? The port is open, or the checkpoint is open from 9 from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., whatever, depending on where you are. Some places it's 24 hours, whatever, it's 12 hours, depending on the place you go, depending on the unions, depending on the strikes, whatever. Yeah, certain shifts. So you hire the guy for a specific time frame. You're not telling him you have 20 trucks that are going to come through today. You're telling him all the trucks that come through today, you have to process them for a payment. So then he's not a sachir for the melacha. The melacha doesn't have an ending time, because he can't get up at 4 p.m. and say, I finished my job for the day. There's more trucks coming. There's more ships coming. If you tell him you have to process 10 trucks a day, is one thing. Maybe one day is only going to be 5 trucks. What is he going to do? He has to wait 3 days till get another 5 trucks. There's an accident, whatever. Another day is 15 trucks. He'll tell the other 5, sorry, I'm done for the day. Lock up shop, go get a hotel and come back tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. So that's why you have to have payment per amount. So now, when the Gemar Melacha, the Melacha does not have a specific ending time. So therefore, it doesn't work like that. So that's why in such a scenario, he would be Asr. So if he hires him per day, it's definitely Asr. If he hires him for a week, or for a month, or for a year, then the Gemar Melacha is not the end of the day, there would be a svara that it's mutter. Al says, according to the Maram, there would be a svara that it's mutter. Why? Because he's doim el kablan, not mamash kablan, because his work is not finished. He's doim el kablan because a regular shkir he has to start at 6 a.m. and finish at 6 p.m. So his time ending day is 6 p.m. So he's getting paid for the day. So shkir shavua or shkir chodesh, and it's all mixed in together. So it's lesser. He's doim el kablan, still not fully a kablan because he doesn't have a defined job. But the Maram doesn't go with that. The Maram says you have to give a certain amount from every 100, because then we say he becomes a shkir for these numbers. It means every 100 that he processes, every $100 in tax revenue that he processes, he finished one job. It's like lighting on one fire. It's like one hesek. He's a shkir for every 100 or every 1,000. Today, 100 doesn't make sense. But I'm saying you do processing much bigger numbers. For every $10,000 in taxes that you process, the Jew gets a certain amount, the government gets a certain amount, the guy gets a certain amount, whichever way is divided. And this, even though it's not really a kablan, it's a shvachi kablan, still no, it was mutter because of pseida. You can't have the tax, you can't have the borders closed. Shabbos, Yom Tov, you're going to start having borders closed 3 days in a row. This year, Tishrei would have the border closed, open for 4 days in a month. Right, so this is how the Alter Rebbe explains Sefer HaTruma over here, and based on Sefer HaTruma, he defines the difference between a kablan and a schir yoim, or a schir shana, that by schir shana, that a schir shana who takes upon himself a specific amount of responsibilities, the Sefer HaTruma is materet. Why? Because his jobs are defined and not by the day. If he has a specific set of jobs. Comes Alter Rebbe in Madura Basra and flips the whole thing over. Madura Basra is very long, but there's I'll tell you where it is. I jumped to the middle of the Madura Basra. It's on page... starts on page Taf Nun Ches, but what I'm going to discuss is a little bit in Taf Samach, a little bit in Taf Samach Aleph, a little bit Taf Samach Gimel.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it. First, what we're discussing over here, I'm just going to what happens if the years later. Let's say Americans, right?
Yeah.
When you have, let's say, we've had Maritain or whatever, the Maskana. I'm a Yid and I know that this
a guy works for him and he gets paid for it, he's not allowed to do that. Not allowed to go to that Merchatz even though that the Yid is.
Shabbos?
I mean, let's say it's a situation that it's the guy is in charge of it, or say in a weekday, let's say.
And the weekday, it's a whole separate
I'm
question.
saying how, like, in the situation, when you know, a Yid owns the wine, and CIS can like drink the wine, so I'm saying.
So there is a concept, it's not related to what I want to talk about today. There is a concept that if you have a Yid who is Mechal Shabbos, a restaurant that's open on Shabbos, you're not allowed to buy from it even on
I'm saying
weekdays.
the situation in hotels, let's say.
So hotels, I don't know what this, they have probably Shtar Shabbos, otherwise they're not going to be able to keep it open. But Yid is Mechal Shabbos, the restaurant Mechal Shabbos is Chuvas, that you're not allowed to be Machzik Yedevre Aveda, you're not allowed to,
Even though Mashiach really,
it's not going to help anything.
I'm saying it's that you
You're smart, Machzik Yedevre Aveda, huh?
Well, you don't, I'm saying if you're not trusting him.
You're not being
No.
in year one buying there.
Oh, sure it is. That's, everything adds up.
You know, that it's not a restaurant, that it's a business, it's a Yid open on Shabbos, you know.
Anything which supports,
You're not eating from it, it's not so much a kashrus,
it's not a shot of kashrus. It's not a shot of kashrus.
If you're not eating it, it's a guy who's open on
It's
Shabbos.
different, huh?
Guy who owns,
If it's somebody, there's a truth about it. If somebody who's Stam Mechal Shabbos doesn't know better is one thing. Somebody who's Dafka Mechal Shabbos in a specific place and he knows it's wrong, then you're say whatever. You're not supporting him in your weekdays. The right amount of Malcolm I'll find you later.
How many people do you have exactly in that category?
Much more than you think. In Madura Basel, Al brings the Sefer Truma, and over there he explains in the Sefer Truma. I'm summarizing the certain points of Madura Basel. I'm not reading it inside. There's 3 different categories in Kablans, so to speak. I'm not calling Kablans. There's a guy who is doing work in a Jew's house. If a guy is doing work in a Jew's house, even if the Jew sets with him a specific price per job, it's still asur, because it's nikar that is doing the work for Yid. A guy who's doing stam a job for a Jew, bekablanus, as a kablan, you don't even have to set up a price with him, a specific price, like katzatz, the ktitza of how much he's going to get paid. If it's bringing a letter of a Jew, you have to be kaitzatz. Why? Because the letter of a Jew looks more like it's a Yid's thing. So then the Alter Rebbe goes and he explains what's the difference in Shchir Yoim and a Shchir Shana. L'chayra, there shouldn't be a difference between them, right? Because by Shchir Yoim and Shchir Shana, both of them are receiving payment per day of work. And both of them is a shliach of the Yid. And my nafkamina, whether he's working 1 day or he's working 7 days or he's working 365 days. What's the difference in Shchir Yoim and Shchir Shana? Why is the Sefer Truma make by Shchir Shana? So he says like this: Shchir Yoim, the Lashon Alter Rebbe is kevan shekol yoim mischashev levadoi. See, being that every day gets calculated independently for the sake of a salary, the guy becomes shluchish leYisrael mamash, becomes mamash the Yid's shliach. Even if the guy is doing it for himself. But by Shchir Shana, he says leinas shluchah the Shabbos. Why? Because technically he could do the job on weekdays. You give him a list of jobs for the year or for the month. You're not telling him, you're not paying him specifically for Shabbos. You're paying him for all these jobs. You could have done it on a Tuesday. Could have done it on a Friday. Could have done it on a Shabbos. Whatever it is. He wouldn't have had this issue. So he's not doing on Shabbos because of the Yid that hired him to do it on Shabbos and in the Shlichus. Now, if it would be a Yid doing it for another Yid, there would be Shlichus in such a scenario. But by a guy, we're not so makpid. Because by a guy, ultimately, there's no shluchas the guy. So when are we makpid by a guy? The Alter Rebbe's definition is mechzik shluchah. The Alter Rebbe repeats the concept, mechzik shluchah. In a scenario where it's visible and it's seen that he's your shliach. It looks like he's your shliach. When it's a Shchir Yoim, clearly looks like he's your shliach. He's getting a job, he's getting paid, it clearly looks like he's your shliach. When it's a Shchir Shana, it does not look like he's your shliach. It does not look like he's your shliach. Therefore, By Schir Shana, if you're hiring him for Shabbos, still the Alter Rebbe says it in the Madura Basra, it boils down how you if you make day by day, each day, you're paying you, so you worked Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. You worked 6 days. I'm paying you $600. Next week, he comes and he says, okay, you worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. 5 days is defined by the payment being done on Shabbos. Before Shabbos, not on Shabbos, for Shabbos. That the day of Shabbos is independent in the calculations. So therefore, even if you don't, so he becomes a Schir and not a Kavlan. But if at the end of the time you don't calculate with him based on day by day, you don't sit with him and say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you say, oh, you came, did this work, and you did this work, and you did this work for me. I hired you for the whole year. And for the month of November, you had to shed over there, and you had to plow that street, and you had to do this, and you had to do that, and you had to you had to fly there to pick up this merchandise. Okay, done. I'm paying you for the month. Then it's fine. Then it's not a Schir. And then it's mutter.
It's still
It's a havlo. Huh?
Still merzik kishluch.
No. It's not merzik kishluch.
By a store.
Huh?
By a store.
When by a story, I have a problem with a sign. It says Yid's story, you're not allowed to do anything with that. If he's working for you on Shabbos, you have the problem with a sign doesn't exist. You have a much bigger problem. You have a problem that he's working for you on Shabbos and he's getting paid for Shabbos. Huh? Huh? Everything's Isser Medina. Rabbanan Medina, yeah. Shlucha is Isser Medina. The whole Yesod of the Isser is Mitzat Shluchas. It's not Isser of Nirek Shlucha. The definition of a Shliach, which is Asr on Shabbos, is Mitzat Nirek Shlucha. As long as it's, you can't really be a Shliach if you're a Goy. Ma'atim Shlucha v'nebris, we're Machmer by a Goy. But how are we going to be Machmer by a Goy is if it's not even Mechzik Shlucha, it's a very far-fetched scenario, then we're not going to say that he's a shliach. But when it's merzik shluchah, we say he's a Schir Shana, it's mutter, but not by a Schir Yoim. It's not because of kablanos, not because he accepted upon himself to do the work, a specific set of work, like we said in the Kuntasachim. It's not the reason. The reason by a Schir Shana is because you made a ktzitzah with him, you're ktzitzah with him for the whole year. And when you hired him for this malach, and you're kaitzah for this malach. It doesn't have to even be a kablan. You made a k'tzitza specifically for that. So over there, domik tzas la-kablan. It's a little bit similar to a kablan. It's not mamash a kablan. You can't say that a Schir Shana is really a kablan. It's domik la-kablan because you do a k'tzitzas mois. And the malacha that he does is muvla together with all the other malachas. And the payment that he gets is muvla together with all the other payments. In such a scenario, becomes the melacha is considered as if it is his melacha, not your melacha. It's knuyale. And when he gets paid for the melacha. But it has to be a defined melacha. So, Madura Basra, there's two big differences. First of all, can't just tell him, do all the jobs on this list. Go to the office from 9 to 5 and do everything that has to be done. That doesn't work. You give him a defined melacha, defined payment, and it cannot be done on a day-by-day basis. From the Madura Basra, it seems from the beginning, from the Kuntasachran, it seems like it has to do with how you define his job. You define his role. He has a specific job that he has, specific jobs that he has to do. He becomes a kabbalah for these malachas. He's not really a kabbalah because he's getting paid by the week or by the month or by the year. Still mutter. Yeah, but over there also, the difference between a Schir Shana and a Schir Yoim has nothing to do with how you divide the days. It has to do with how the job is structured. In the Madura Basra, the moment your salary is no longer calculated day by day, rather month by month, year by year, and you have a specific set of jobs to do, then you already looks like a kabbalah, and it's mutter. It means the Madura Basra is be'etzem more mekel than the Kuntasachran. Madura Basra comes out that it has to do with how the structure of the payment is done. The structure of the payment is done in such a way that you're not paying day by day. You're not calculating day by day. And I'll just tell you the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe. As long as he accepts upon himself to do the job, it becomes as if it's the guy's job. He's getting paid for the year. He's not getting paid specifically for the jobs. He accepted upon himself to do specific jobs, and could be halfway through the year he's going to give up on building this building. He's going to leave the job. He's not going to be your Koblan anymore. It still becomes as if it's his melacha. Yeah, it's קיבל על אולב לעשויס הכל משך, יש לנו כדידי דומי מלאכה זו בכל משך זמן זה. Becomes as if it's melacha. מאחר שקיבל אולב לעשויס הכל משך זמן זה, he accepted upon himself to do this melacha, this specific amount of time. So therefore, he's like a Koblan. Yeah, but it can't be a more general one. And as long as the payment is not divided day by day, then it is considered mutter.